So there's a couple points in my life that I can identify like a major pivot just from what you would consider at the time an insignificant event or conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't say I tell people I had a little bit of a misspent youth and nothing criminal, but I hung with a crowd that, probably wasn't the best friend group to have if you're a parent. And I didn't really think much of high school at the time. Probably the biggest regret of my life is I didn't try harder in high school to actually learn. I wish I had that knowledge and whatnot now, but I didn't really think much of it. I was in a rock band when I was 15 and 16. I had long hair. I was out playing in bars when I was 15 and 16, watching people do drugs. Never touched a drug, but I was in that crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've been at parties that were busted by the ATF. And, my mom hears these stories now and she cringes, but I was a relatively decent kid though, individually. And I thought I was going to go to college and maybe go to law school. But I was walking to lunch the one day and the Marine Corps recruiter standing there and he says, "Hey son, what are you going to do after high school?"
This is in high school.
It is.
What year?
That was like 1991.
And what year in high school were you?
I was a senior.
Okay.
And he says,
vulnerable.
Well, yeah. And honestly, again, reference that I wasn't real into school. I had finished most of my college prereqs by my sophomore year. So I actually took auto mechanics for my junior and senior year because it was something I was actually interested in. And it got me out of just the academic environment that I wasn't interested in. And he says, "Hey, what are you going to do after high school?" I said, "I don't know. I'll probably go to college, maybe go to law school." He goes, "Well, what about the Marines?" Again, I didn't have a lot of exposure to the Marines. Most of what I knew was watching commercials of them slay dragons and really cool stuff. So their marketing was really good.
It's always been the best.
And I said, "Well, I don't know." And he goes, what do the Marines do?" He says, "Oh, we will go camping. We shoot guns. We blow shit up." I'm like, "That sounds awesome." So he's like, "Hey, why don't you come down this weekend, meet me at the office?" Okay. So I go down and I have a conversation with him. And I have to say my recruiter was really good. You hear horror stories of being misled, being lied to. He was totally upfront and honest with me. And so I had a couple sit downs with him individually. And then I went home and I was 17 and I went home and I said, "Hey, I'd like to join the Marine Corps." And my parents were not having it. My dad, many of his friends were killed in Vietnam. The Marine Corps recruiter back in his day was the guy in the back of the courtroom raising his hand if he was willing to take somebody instead of having them go to jail. So he was not real enthusiastic, but through sitting down with the recruiter, with my parents, talking to them, and ultimately I told him, I said, "Look, you can help me sign up now in the delayed enlistment program," because I was 17, they had to sign for me, which I ultimately turned 18 at Parris Island.
Wow.
I said, "Or you can wait until I turn 18 and I'm just going to go in anyway. And at that point you're open enrollment and who knows where I'm going to end up." So they got on board and they signed the paperwork and I ended up graduating high school and took the summer, worked for a bit and then took the rest off to kind of hang out. And then I left for the Marine Corps.